In this video, I'm going to be doing a review of this rare bird. My name is Murray and you're watching 3BARD videos. Okay, so this is going to be the first official 3BARD videos firearm review. And I'm quite excited about this because I'm hoping that firearm review videos, as well as other product review videos, mostly regarding the firearms industry, will be a huge part of this channel. So that being said, before I dive into this review for this firearm, because it's the first video, I am going to quickly go over how these reviews are going to be organized. So that way, for those of you who are following my channel, you'll kind of have a better idea of how to kind of fast forward through these videos and find out the information that you want. And the reason why I'm doing this is simply because I want my reviews to be about as detailed and in-depth as possible. So that probably means, depending on the firearm and how much I have to say about it, that probably means my reviews are going to tend to be very long-winded, very long videos to watch. So to make it easier for people to navigate through these videos without having to watch the entire thing if they don't have time for it, I've adopted this category system that's going to be consistent for all my firearm review videos. So, these are just points I'm going to reflect on throughout the video about the gun, like durability, reliability, accuracy, etc. And the idea being behind this is I will put these categories down in the description box of the video below. And I'll also put a time link next. Hopefully I'll be able to put a time link next to each category. So for those of you that come to my review video and you want to just know about the gun's accuracy and you don't want to watch the rest, you can go into the description box, scroll down and find the accuracy category and just click the time link next to it. And that should bump the video ahead to the accuracy portion so you can get your information fast. The final thing I'm going to do to kind of speed things up as well, for those of you that just want a quick kind of yes or no answer or just a quick impression of the firearm, I am going to be doing this scoring system. So at the end of the video I will score the firearm and give it a percentage, just using these different categories. And what I'm going to do with that percentage is I'm actually going to post it in the thumbnail for the video. So that's the picture you click when you want to watch the video on YouTube. So somewhere on that picture I will have displayed this score for the firearm. So before you even click my review video, you should be able to get a good impression of how well the firearm kind of did in my personal opinion. That's generally how these reviews are going to work. Things might change over time if I'm finding certain things need to be improved. But for now, this is how it's going to be. I'm also going to try to film most of my reviews outside, so there's a little bit of a more unique and nicer atmosphere for these videos. But because of the weather right now and it's still winter here in Canada, I have to resort to filming these initial reviews in my shop. So you can see I got this plywood behind me just to kind of make a less distracting background. And there's going to be a lot of background noise of cars driving by and stuff like that. So anyways, we'll get right into this review. So going off this category board, first thing is, what is this? This right here is the Tanfoglio Appeal. It is a semi-automatic 22 Winchester Magnum rimfire bullpup rifle. And it's non-restricted in Canada currently at the time of this video. And the reason why it has non-restricted status, in my personal opinion, is probably because this firearm is a purpose-built semi-automatic bullpup rifle only. So there has never ever been any full auto variants or anything like that of it, to my knowledge. And Tanfoglio has very much kind of marketed this firearm as a civilian firearm from the ground up. So it doesn't have any military or law enforcement agency history to it. So I think that's generally the reason why it has non-restricted status here in Canada, even though it is a bullpup rifle. Where did I get it and how much? Unfortunately, due to YouTube's new firearm policy, I can no longer list where exactly I purchased these firearms. But with that being said, I will mention that I purchased this firearm in Canada from a website around 3 years ago for a price tag of around 650 Canadian before shipping. Unfortunately, one thing I will add is at the time of this video, I've checked that website where I purchased this firearm from, and they no longer appear to be importing in the 22 mag versions of these firearms. So, and as far as I'm aware, this website that I purchased this gun from is the only distributor or importer of Tanfoglio products here in Canada at the time. So there's a chance that unless that changes in the future, this gun might become a little bit of a rare bird, and the only way to get one might be just through purchasing it used somewhere. So variations of it, as far as I'm aware, there is only one other variant of this firearm, and that is a 22 long rifle version. You'll notice it looks the exact same as this firearm, so it's dimensionally it's the same. The only thing will be subtle mechanical differences, like the mags might be shaped a little different, and of course the internals, but it's the same length and weight, I believe, as the 22 mag version. And luckily, the company that I purchased this gun from still is importing in the 22 long rifle versions. They are a special order though, and I noticed the price tag for them these days seems to be around $600 Canadian for the 22 long rifle version. Okay, so before I get into the features of this firearm, I'm just going to quickly go over how this firearm basically functions. So as you can clearly see, it's a bullpup design, so that means most of the fire control group is located at the front here, underneath the barrel, and the action and all the firing components are towards the rear in the buttstock of the firearm. And the connection made between the two is usually done through levers and rods, push rods and things like that. So as far as I'm aware, the Tanfoglio Appeal is a blowback design action. So what that means is it has no gas system. So when it fires, the inertia of the shell going off, here's the bolt in the closed position, the inertia of the shell going off actually pushes the action back to the rear of the receiver, which then in turn cocks the hammer once again, and then the whole thing comes forward. For those of you who are familiar with other blowback systems, a lot of you will notice that the designs for them tend to be built so the mass that's required to make the action work is built into the bolt, and usually that mass is located towards the rear of the bolt and it travels, so it makes the bolt quite long. But of course, because Tanfoglio wanted to make this a bullpup rifle, they have come up with an innovative way to make most of the mass for the bolt extended up towards the front portion of the rifle. So you can see this rod that I'm pushing on right now is connected to the bolt group. And this hole right here is the fixture point for the charging handle, which reciprocates. So that's pretty much how this firearm operates in a nutshell. So surprisingly, this gun has quite a few features for what it is. The gun is built around or built into a polymer frame, and it's a really durable polymer. It seems to be very well made. And yeah, pretty much even the rail itself for the optics is made of this polymer. Of course, though, the barrel and all the internal mechanism components are all made of steel. The gun does feed from these detachable proprietary 10-round magazines that are single stack. And what's really cool about these magazines is they actually have finger tabs built into the follower, so you can pull down the follower to aid in feeding in the 22 mag shells. So they're really well made. The gun does have an ambidextrous magazine release, which is simply just a plastic button located towards the rear of the buttstock here, just in front of the magazine well. And it's ambidextrous because you can reach it from both sides really easily. It has an ambidextrous charging handle as well, and that's extremely easy to switch around too. All you do, you can see where it's located right here, and all you do to change which direction it points is simply pull it out and pop it in on the other side. It's retained in place by a little spring pin built into the mechanism, so that's all that holds it in there. It's just pressure, but it never comes out. It's in there really well. It has a ambidextrous ejection too, so if you want to, you can actually disassemble the bolt and put the extractor on the opposite side and make it. You can switch. You can make this gun eject out the right side like I have it now, or you can have it eject out the left side. It has cutouts in in the polymer frame for both directions, and it does come with a little plastic door that you could snap in place for the side that you aren't using to cover it up and make it look good and keep junk from getting inside there. It does have a bolt release and a bolt hole open that is located right by right on top of the pistol grip on the left side of the firearm. Unfortunately, this is not ambidextrous, but it's very easy to manipulate with both hands. It is a little bit awkward though, in the sense that to release the bolt, you actually push it up rather than down. The safety is really basic on this thing, but it's well made. It's a simple, just cross bolt safety located right in front of the trigger guard, just like your standard a lot of semi-automatic firearms and hunting rifles and shotguns. And I believe it's not ambidextrous, it's just... The trigger on it is very similar to most other bullpup triggers. It is a plastic trigger, while the trigger itself is plastic, but it has a very spongy pull, like most bullpups are famous for. And it does break well though when you finally do reach its break, and it's measured at around 5.5 pounds. And the reset is actually quite nice on it, so if you make use of the reset on it, you can it's very definitive, so when you feel the pop of the trigger go back into its reset, it is a fairly nice break after that. So it's a 5-pound trigger, so not bad. The gun does come with 2 sling loops that are located on the bottom of the firearm, one right up towards the front here, and the other is located at the very back. Very simple design, made of plastic of course. The gun does have 2 rails, so it has the optic rail on the top here that's made out of polymer, as well as just below the muzzle it has a very short rail that's only about maybe 1.5 inches in length. So there's not a lot of real estate on this firearm to mount a lot of Picatinny accessories and stuff like that. The optic rail itself, I would say, is right around maybe like 9 inches in length, 8 inches. It's not very long. And the gun does have iron sights built into this rail system. They're very simple. The front is elevation adjustable, and the rear is windage adjustable. And it's a simple leaf system. So you got like the front sight, and then you just got the little horn that you line it up with. The gun does come with a polymer muzzle brake, which I do not have equipped to it right now, but to equip it, all you have to do is just slide it over the muzzle, and it slides over the pre-existing rail built into the front of the gun, and then you simply put a bolt that comes with the gun, of course, up into the receiver, and you just screw it in. So it's very easy to install, and although I believe it doesn't really affect the muzzle jump of the firearm, it doesn't look half bad. And one added advantage for it for sure is the fact that it helps to prevent you from accidentally getting your fingers up in front or really close to the muzzle of this gun. So it's kind of good in a safety aspect, if you ask me. And of course, when you install that, there is a rail section in the same length as the previous front rail built into that muzzle brake. So when you install it, you still have a rail up towards the front. The gun surprisingly came with a lot of bells and whistles from the factory. It comes in this really nice hard case that has foam padding inside it, and of course the case has a little slide tabs on it so you can lock it closed, and it's inscripted Tanfoglio on the front. A very pretty case, and it fits the gun perfectly with lots of space inside. Surprisingly too, the gun actually comes with a solid piece cleaning rod built specifically for the firearm. And it rotates too, so it's a very nice high quality clean rod. And it even comes with a brass jag and swab and stuff for 22 cal. So that's really impressive to see a factory do that for the price that you pay for this firearm. Another thing it does have is towards the rear here, it has a hard plastic buttstock. So very simple, but it's a 22 mag, so it doesn't really need a rubber butt pad. And the gun from the factory does come with a bunch of shims that are about, I'm going to say 3/8 in thickness, that you can sandwich between the butt plate and the buttstock if need be, if you need to adjust the length of pull a bit. I have all 3 of them installed on the gun, and all 3 of them work out to be about, like a little over 1 inch in length. So the way it is right now, I definitely find the length of pull to be just right for me. And I'm a 6-foot guy, so I would say this gun's length of pull, if you it can adjust for pretty much all sizes. It can be quite short, and it can be made decently long. So the length of this firearm, and I'm not sure if this includes the muzzle brake or not, I just looked this up on the internet, but it's around 29.5 inches in length. That's the overall length of it, and I've weighed it with an empty magazine inserted into it. Without the muzzle brake attached, it weighs just under 5 pounds. The muzzle brake is plastic, so I doubt it adds any weight to the gun. So it's basically a 5-pound rifle. So now I'll cover its build quality. Tanfoglio is an Italian-based firearms manufacturer that has a really good reputation for making extremely high-quality pistols. That's mainly what they design and produce. However, that level of quality can definitely be seen in their rifles as well. Even though this is a polymer gun, there is absolutely no unsightly molding marks in any of its parts as far as I can see, and the general fit and finish of the gun seems to be really well. There's nothing on this gun that wobbles other than the magazine itself. You can see there's a little bit of wobble there, but the rest of the gun feels really tight and really well made. All the metal components in it seem to be machined really well as well. There's no ugly, unsightly tooling marks or anything like that. So definitely a really well built firearm. And the durability has been really good as well. I've had this thing for over 3 years now, and nothing's broke on it. I generally do take really good care of my firearms. I don't subject them to any real harsh use. But with that being said, I have taken this gun out varmint hunting in significant sub-zero temperatures, like -20 below Celsius, on a few occasions. And during that use, this gun has been transported on things like snowmobiles and stuff, and out in the cold for hours at a time, and yet nothing's broke on it. So that's kind of a testament to how, even though it's polymer, even in Canada here, so when subjected to the cold, it seems to hold up really good. I definitely wouldn't go up to the Arctic though and use it to club baby seals, but you know, if you treat it decently, it should hold up really good. Reliability has been really good as well. Surprisingly, despite this thing being a semi-automatic rimfire, this gun has roughly around 400 rounds through it now, I believe, and it's never had a single failure to feed nor a single failure to eject, which is quite surprising in my opinion. However, it doesn't have a perfect track record. I have noticed with certain makes of ammo, this firearm will occasionally get a light primer strike, and those, after you wait the safe amount of time to eject them, you will notice there is a little nick on the back end of the cartridge where the firing pin hit it, and you can load that cartridge back up into the firearm and pull the trigger a second time and it will go off. So it seems to be an issue of probably a little bit of a light hammer spring, I guess. I've never contacted, it hasn't been a big enough issue for me to even bother contacting Tanfoglio about it, but there is a chance that maybe they have a heavier hammer spring or something that could solve that problem. But I haven't, like I said, I haven't really had a reason to follow up on it. So here's the general accuracy I seem to get out of this firearm. I took the firearm out to the range just the other day. In the configuration you pretty much see it in, so with the iron sights and whatnot, and I shot 5-shot groups at 50 yards with it. This particular target is with CCI 30 grain jacketed hollow points, and the groups tend to range with the CCI anywhere from 3 inches to 4 inches at 50 yards, so that's about 6 to 8 MOA, so not very good. That is with the iron sights, I will note though, so there is a chance with a magnified optic that this gun might shoot a little bit better, but my groups seem to be pretty consistent, so I think that's a fairly reasonable representation of what the gun does with that particular ammo. I did shoot Remington 40 grain jacketed hollow points as well. All these are hollow points, that's all I've ever fed it because, you know, for hunting purposes and stuff. And you can see it seems to kind of prefer the Remington a little bit more. This is a 4-shot group. I did pull one because there was a guy at the range that day with a really obnoxious AR shooting right next to me, so he made me flinch a few times. But yeah, generally the 40 grain Remington seems to pattern around 2 to 4 inches. Actually, no, not 4. I think it usually seems to go around 2 to 3 inches at 50 yards. So that's about 4 to 6 MOA generally. This is a good example of what this gun sometimes does. Occasionally, when you're shooting off the bench, I've noticed it will sometimes do some vertical straying here. And I believe this is due to its design. Because it's a polymer frame, the barrel is attached to the polymer frame at the rear towards the breech by a pin. And then it also makes contact with the frame right at the muzzle end. It goes through like an O-ring system that has it kind of cinched down to lower up there. So I believe that if you are shooting off a bench or some sort of supported position and you really hunker down on the rifle, like using the pistol grip to really hold the gun steady, there is a chance that you can actually kind of warp the system and kind of mess with the barrel harmonics, I believe, and that causes the gun to string vertically like this. I took my time shooting these, so this isn't temperature related. This is purely something to do with the way the gun is harmonically and the way you support it. So regarding modifications, there has been no modifications made to this particular firearm, and really as far as I'm aware, there's really no aftermarket support for them as well. The only magazines you can purchase for this gun currently at the time of this video is the factory 10-round magazines that come with this rifle. And pretty much beyond that, any other items you can purchase for the gun is pretty much whatever attaches to this rail up here or on the rail down below towards the front here. Anything else you do beyond that is going to be third party, like something you get a gunsmith to do or you do yourself in your garage. As for support from the company itself, thankfully I haven't had to deal with them in any way because this gun's been really reliable and it hasn't broken anyway. So, but with that being said, the company I did purchase this from, I have contacted them numerous times since the purchase of this rifle just regarding things like buying more of these mags or just other products they sell, and they've been really good about communicating back to me in a relatively short amount of time. And combining that with the fact that Tanfoglio really stands behind their products kind of leads me to guess that the support for this firearm generally should be really good. The only downside I could think about it is the fact that Tanfoglio is an Italian company, so any sort of parts or accessories you might need to bring in for this rifle in the future probably have to come from Italy, so there might be a bit of a waiting period for stuff like that. But yeah, support I really can't talk about from direct experience. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do a basic field strip on this firearm. Of course, the first thing you want to do is make sure that your firearm is unloaded and safe. After you've done that, you'll want to charge the action. This will cock the hammer back at the rear, so that'll allow you to slide the bolt out easier in the future. And then you can take the magazine out of the firearm if you happen to have it loaded, like, you know, the magazine in the gun. Obviously not loaded with ammo. I'm going to let the bolt forward. Okay, so to do this, what you're going to need is something pointy, like a center punch or a pin or even a nail. And you got to drive out 3 pins to take apart the gun. And luckily, they're easy enough to take out just by hand. You don't have to use a hammer or anything. So the first one you take out is towards the rear here. And all of these pins are captured pins, so they don't work themselves out by themselves. They're retained in place quite well. The second one is located just above the charging handle area, and the third one is located way up front by the muzzle, and it's a little stiff to pull out, but there you go. After you've done that, the next step is you got to pull out the charging handle. Ugh. This is a little hard for me because my fingers are getting cold. It's really cold in this shot. Once you've done that, the top portion of the gun literally just lifts off the lower. It's a little snug, so you just gotta kind of help it, and there you go. Now to take out the bolt, which is this mechanism, this entire mechanism right here, first thing you want to do is take out the little recoil spring. So to do that, you just simply pull it forward like a lot of comm block guns, and then you just let it kind of tilt it up, and then you just let it slowly out. be sure you hold on to these things really good so they don't launch out and potentially hurt you. After you've done that, you can slide out these guide rails, the rails that the action slides on, and they simply just slip out the back of the receiver, like so. Now, the next step is to take the bolt out. You actually have to unscrew this front portion up here. And it's really easy to do, especially if you're like me and you actually coat the threads with some anti-seize compound. But unfortunately, it is a really fine pitch thread and it's quite long, so you have to sit here and unspin it for a while. Once you reach the end of the thread, like so, it just slips right off. You can feel there's a little bit of mass to this because this is, like I said, this is the thing that adds the mass to the bolt as part of the blowback design. Once you've done that, you just kind of fish the bolt out towards the rear, and once you get far enough back, you'll be able to pivot it enough to just kind of work it out like so. And there you go, there's your bolt. And pretty much anything else you do beyond this is a full disassembly, which I'm not going to show, but I have done it before, and it literally just involves punching out pins here and there. Taking the barrel out of this gun isn't too hard as well. You just drive out this one pin here, and then you just kind of slide the barrel back, because it's kept in place at the front by an O-ring, just friction. So there you go. So now for my favorite part of the review, and that's where I discuss what I like and dislike about this gun. So first off, I'll start with things I like about it. Right off the bat, I'll mention that I really like how compact and lightweight this gun is. And that doesn't just apply for the firearm itself, that also applies for its ammunition. It's really cool how you can, the 22 mag literally comes in a box that's this big by this big, and there's 50 rounds in that. So it really is nothing to be out in the field and literally be carrying like 300 rounds of 22 mag on you and this rifle. And it still works for a very lightweight and compact package with the two things combined. So that's really great. I also like how well made this gun is. It kind of comes off when you first look at it as being kind of a cheap plastic rifle, but the moment you pick it up and you start handling it and just testing its functionality and stuff, it really comes off after that as being a very well built gun. Like, it's really rigid and just it feels great in the hands. It feels really robust for what it is. I also like how it has really good ergos. It's really amazing that a gun like this has a bolt release and a bolt hole open. I absolutely love it when guns have that, because I really like to take advantage of that feature when I'm doing mag changes. And it even goes beyond that, like even things like the pistol grip on it has this little grooving for your fingers, and it's very comfy for the human hand. Just all around, this gun's a very ergonomic gun to shoot, and I like that. The 10 round mags are also nice, the fact that they're illegal here in Canada. So, you know, that automatically makes it twice as good as a gun that has only 5 round mags. Twice as fun. It's also really affordable. So a lot of people will ask me how much this gun is, and I'll tell them $650 Canadian, and they'll kind of jump back like, whoa, that's quite a bit, isn't it? But really, when you look at it, for what this gun is, a semi-automatic, non-restricted bullpup here in Canada, it actually is, and correct me if I'm wrong if there's a more affordable option in the comment section below, but as far as I'm aware, this is the most affordable bullpup in Canada at the moment. The only thing that comes close to it is the Type 97 chambered in 223, and even those, I believe those you can only pick up for around $800 new. You could probably pick up a used one for around $650, but even they don't come quite close to reaching this gun's price tag new, and they don't even come close to this rifle in terms of ergonomics and lightweight either. So it's very affordable in my opinion, and the mags are surprisingly cheap too. 10 round mag for this gun only cost $25 Canadian at the time that I bought it, so I think that's a very fair price. Of course, I really like how it's ambidextrous. That's always a nice feature to have if you have a left-handed shooter coming out to the range with you, and you know you're worried about getting the brass, especially being a bullpup rifle. you're worried about getting the ejected casings in the face, you can, in a very limited or short amount of time, you can change it around for him to fit his needs. So that's cool. It's also great, or a bonus, that this gun's kind of unique, especially since they're not being imported into the country right now at the time of this video. It just makes for, you know, out of the 3 years I've owned this thing, this is the only one I've seen in public. Like, I've been to numerous gun shows, I've been to the range, you know, hundreds and hundreds of times, and the only Tanfoglio Appeal I've seen in person is this one right here that I own. So it's a very unique firearm. Yet there are a few hundred of them, I believe, in Canada, especially if the 22 long rifle versions, but definitely a very unique gun, so that's kind of cool. When you take it to the range, you kind of know you're going to be the only dude that has one there, so that's kind of a neat feeling. Another thing I like about it is the fact that it shoots cheap, easy to find, non-corrosive ammunition. So the 22 mag it really bridges the gap between 22 long rifle and something like a 9mm carbine. So it's a little bit more money than 22 long rifle, but yet it's cheaper than 9mm. And it's going to be cheaper than your corrosive Russian calipers as well. But yet it's non-corrosive, so that's great. And another bonus is the fact that it's easy to find hunting ammo for it, for a reasonable price. So literally all I shoot for this gun is hunting ammo, because the hunting ammo, the hollow point hunting ammo, is pretty much the same price as the target ammo. So now I'll get into the things I dislike about this gun. And right off the bat, the first thing I'll point out is the accuracy. I just personally find the 4 to 6 MOA just a little too inaccurate for my liking. I do understand that's a bullpup semi-automatic rifle, and you know, Tanfoglio probably designed it for, like, you know, the plinking crowd. People are shooting 50 yards and under, so, and it's perfectly adequate for distances like that. But if you really want to reach out, you know, to 100 yards and further, even though the gun's ballistically capable of that, for sure, that 4 to 6 MOA really starts to limit what you're going to engage, especially in hunting situations. Another thing I dislike about this gun is the fact that these rails are out of spec. Now, what I mean by out of spec is they simply, the notches that they have in them are really weird. They're spaced similar to like a Weaver system, but yet they aren't. And yet they're too far apart to be a Picatinny system. So what you'll find is a Picatinny optic will mount to this gun. There is a chance in some cases you might have to like file some of the notches to make it work. The dovetail system on the top is the proper width, so it's in spec that way, but it's the notches that are out of spec. And the same goes for the rail on the bottom too. So any 1913 rails that you attach to this thing, you're going to want, if it has the two kind of, if it's just one, it's probably good. It'll probably clamp on there, or with a little bit of filing it definitely will. But if you're using a mount that has two bars that interlock with the rail, there's a chance they might not line up. So that's kind of a bummer. I don't know why they designed it like that. It's just the way it is. Another complaint is the rail itself, in my opinion, is a little too far forward. When you'll notice when I'm shouldering this thing, my face comfortably sits back here, and there's really no reason I can see why they couldn't have had the rail start way back here and just go the full length. Like, it doesn't get in the way of my face. And I don't know why they don't do that. For red dots, it's perfectly fine where it's at, but the moment you go to put like a scope on this thing that has a short eye relief, you're going to notice it's doable, but your scope is literally going to be mounted at the very rear of this mount. So it's going to look like kind of like a Mosin PPU sniper. It's going to have the scope right here, and most of the scope is going to be hanging out the back. So it looks a little funky. So that's weird why they did it that way. Another little complaint is up in the front end of the gun right here, there is a nut that rides inside the lower here that holds that bolt that attaches the muzzle device to it. And if you don't have that bolt, if you don't have that muzzle device attached, that nut in the rifle, like in the way the rifle is right now, that nut will actually work its way out of its little holding spot over time and just start rattling around inside the gun. So that's really annoying. They should have figured out a way to like glue it permanently in place or epoxy it or something. So I took that nut out and it's sitting in a little baggie somewhere. But that's kind of annoying that that happens. Another complaint, of course, is regarding reliability. It does occasionally get a light primer strike. That's not a huge deal, but it does happen. And then finally, another little tiny pet peeve with it, but it's super minor, definitely can get used to it, is the fact that the bolt release is inverted. The fact that you have to push it up to release the bolt rather than push it down. It's just kind of counterintuitive compared to all the other Western guns out there, and even Russian guns. So that's a little bit weird. So for possible roles I see this gun doing really good at, definitely what first comes to mind is something like a plinking roll. So that's where you just take the gun out to the bush or out to the range and you just shoot it to have fun, shooting targets and things like that. This gun would definitely be good at something like that just because it's a bullpup, so it's a real novelty to bring out, and it kind of has that space gun look to it. So, and it's super unique too, so there's a good chance when you take it out to the range or bring it, show it to your buddies, you know, it's going to be something they've never seen before, so that's going to be really cool. It's semi-automatic, of course, so that makes it fun for plinking, and it's fed from 10-round magazines, so you know, you get that many more pulls of the trigger before you have to reload, so that makes it funner. 22 mag's really handy, of course. Like I said, it's very affordable and it's non-corrosive, so at the end of the day you don't have to worry about going home and cleaning the gun right away, so it doesn't rust or anything like that. It's non-corrosive. And 22 mag's also good in the sense that it hits a lot harder than 22 long rifles, so there is a good chance that if you bring this to some sort of target system where, you know, it's the plates are made out of steel and it's like a swinger or something built for handguns, the 22 mag has a better chance at flipping those plates around, and you'll have a better chance of being able to hear the bullet impacts than something like a 22 long rifle. Another role that I'd be good at, and pretty much the biggest reason why I bought it, is for close range varmint hunting in situations where you want something that's highly compact. So that would of course be situations where you have this on an off-highway vehicle or in a tractor or something like that, and you want a semi-automatic kind of light calibered carbine for engaging small varmints and stuff. So that would be, this 22 mag has enough hitting power that I would definitely feel confident at shooting things like coyotes, porcupines, gophers, and badgers, things like that out to 100 yards easy. What's also great about 22 mag is the fact that with this carbine you don't have to be so worried about the bullets over penetrating or going ricocheting and going a long ways behind the target that you're shooting at. Of course, you always got to be mindful of those things, but you know, with something like this you don't have to be as concerned as you would if it's some full caliber hunting rifle. So they're great for that, and it's also nice in the sense that they aren't too loud. I mean, you should always wear hearing protection with any gun, but in comparison to something like a 243 or a 223, the 22 mag is definitely a lot easier on the ears. So in that case too, and especially for plinking, I forgot to mention, but these guns don't pollute the area as much with noise when you're shooting them, so that definitely makes them more enjoyable for the people around you. And the final role play that I think this gun's really great for is of course beginner shooters, just because of the fact that it's a bullpup and it shoots that, you know, 22 mag. It's great for shooters that don't have a really strong stature, so you see them really struggling to support the weight of a full-size rifle. You know, they do the classic new shooter where they arch their back like that to help support the gun better. This gun of course solves a lot of those issues for them because it's only 5 pounds weight. It's so light, and most of the weight's back here, so they should really be able to hold it quite comfortably and not be played out by it. And because it's 22 mag, you know, the recoil isn't going to punish them. It's not going to be loud and scary, and the concussion isn't going to, you know, scare them either. So it's just all around, and yet it has great ergonomics and it's very intuitive. You know, you got that charging handle for them to manipulate, so and you got the clearly marked safety, and the mag release is easy to find. It's not really crowded and confusing, so it's a great gun for beginners as well. So now for the final part of the review, and that's where I give this rifle a score using the score chart system that I have designed here. So right off the bat, I'm going to give the gun a 20 for whether it's restricted or non-restricted. Because it's non-restricted, I'm giving it a 20 versus a 10 for restricted, because I find that the non-restricted is just that much more handier in my opinion, so that's why it deserves a better score. Accuracy, I'm only going to give it a 10 out of 20. The reason for this is simply because I think the gun is about half as accurate as it should be, or half as accurate as I'd expect it to be. Reliability, if it was perfectly reliable, I'd give it a 20, but because it does occasionally get those light primer strikes, I'm going to give it only a 15. Durability, I'm going to give it a 20 simply because nothing's broke on it. Affordability, I'm going to give it a 20 just because, like what I said, how it literally is the most affordable bullpup currently in Canada, and that's good. So it deserves a 20 for that. Ergonomics, a perfect score of 20 would mean literally everything could be operated using the index finger, like an AR-15 or something like that. And this gun unfortunately isn't quite at that level yet, because the mag release cannot be actuated by the finger. That bumps it back, as well as the bolt release is only on the one side, so that gives it a score of 18. So pretty good, but not perfect. Handling, it gets a 20. It's just an excellent gun to shoot. It shoulders well. It's very comfortable to shoot. Support, because it's hit and miss, because I've never dealt with them, which is a good thing in a certain sense, I'm only going to give it a 5 because it really is, it can swing both ways. Accessories, it gets a 1 because there literally isn't any. The build quality is 10, it's exceptionally well built. Disassembly, as I showed you, for a bullpup it doesn't strike me as being too bad, but because it does require the use of something like a center punch or a pin to knock out the other pins, and also the fact that it's kind of complex, there's a lot of little tiny parts, you definitely wouldn't want to be disassembling this on like the back of a snowmobile in a windy environment surrounded by snow. Be worried about losing things, so I gave it a 7. And design problems, so if the rifle didn't have any design problems, I'd give it a 10. But unfortunately, with the out of spec rail, the rail located too far forward, and the nut that keeps coming out, it only scored a 7 for that. So that gives it a score of 153 out of 90, which gives the gun an overall score of 80.5%. Alrighty, so I guess that concludes this first 3-bar-D videos firearm review of the Tanfoglio Appeal, a pretty interesting and unique firearm that you don't see very often here in Canada. So I hope this review is very helpful for those of you who are thinking about purchasing this gun, or at least interested in one. And I want to thank you for watching. Feel free to check out the rest of my channel for any other videos that might interest you regarding firearms. Take care. Oh, it's cold. I'm gonna go eat some pizza.